We start a session of Flash Talks. Flash Talks are here so that some people from Warsaw, local friends of ours, can talk about something interesting they do. There will be various subjects. First subject is about building global project across cultures and time and culture. So Camila is one of the founders of Geek Girls Carrot, and right now works in DeepSense.io on machine learning. There will be something more about machine learning later on as well. But now she will tell about building global organizations.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. And today I would like to tell a couple words actually about the story of my last 5 years. So it will be only 15 minutes, but still, I hope that you will enjoy. And I'm here because I have really great fun building global organizations, global projects. And just to have a brief words about what does it mean exactly. It's like building Geekers Carrots together with Kamila Sidor. It was very, very first time, very first project which was built by us globally. And it was like building from scratch. So everything which we built, like whole organization, whole structures, it was from scratch. Now I'm very happy to co-organize and working with Women Who Code, which is the biggest organization, Women in New Technologies organization in the world. And we co-organized Connect 2016 in Seattle, which was the biggest conference for women in the West Coast. And thing which my heart is very much into there now is like machine learning workshops program for companies, which I do with DeepSense.io. And now I'm very lucky to live in New York for my everyday life. Now I'm just visiting my home city, which is Warsaw. But my dream, it was always, maybe not always, but for the last couple of years, my great dream, it was to have some impact on tech world, and that's why I chose this women in new technologies like topic. But this impact which I can do with my work is just bigger if I can do that globally. So building these global projects, which for example now for me it's machine learning with DeepSense.io, but it's also like Women Who Code can give me this impact for the global organizations, for the people all over the world actually. So building global organization is also something which can challenge you, because you never know what will happen. Like you are working with people from different cultures, you are working with people from different cities. You can have some imagination about like how project will go on, because you have the timeline, you have some ideas which you would like to just make happen. But still, because of culture, because of different time zones, because of like transportation and so on, you will meet many, many challenges. And what is the best about building these global projects? So building global projects in different cities, in different time zones, it's like you will meet people from different cultures. And these different cultures, these different people give you an ideal opportunity to just work with different point of view. So, for example, I'm happy to work with people from India, I'm happy to work with people from China, from Iran, and even if we are speaking about the same subject, about, for example, machine learning, still their background is different, so they can give something else on the table, put something else on the table. And I would like to just a little bit summarize about things which can really help in building global projects. And first thing is like communication. Communication, which is good for all like global projects in terms of business, in terms of open source, in terms of your just side projects. It's good to have communication in terms of emails, in terms of face-to-face communication, in terms of Skypes, which will be clear and polite. So clear, because you want to be clear about your goals, about needs, your needs, your company's needs, about what you also can offer, because you don't want to promise something which you could not deliver. You want to be professional, which means exactly this thing. But in the same time, for example, speaking about, okay, that's my goal and I need that for Friday. It's not polite. You can do that, you can try, but if you want to build like global project, which means also the long-term relation, you can think about that like long-term, long-distance relationship. You don't want to put everything on the table and you don't want to be rude. So it's from one hand to be very clear about the goals, about what you can deliver, about how you also can help, because like building projects is also helping another side. Like you, for example, from your company, working with another company, for example, from India, on the same project, you should be on the same page, and you should just cooperate. So it's very important to ask about what you can do for them, and really hear the answer. And really, very often those are some small things like, okay, can we push this meeting 1 hour before, or because it will be like 8 a.m. Instead of 7 a.m. in our country. So sometimes those are bigger things. Like, for example, yesterday I had this a talk with some guy from Los Angeles. Perhaps we'll do some conference together with the Senseo. And it's like, okay, but anyways, okay, we are agree on this side. We will have some papers going on, but is there anything which we can do for you? Oh yeah, actually there is. Like, we had this idea about webinar, and this webinar will be like for a couple thousand viewers because we have good network, but we didn't have any company which can help us to build this webinar. So can you help us? Yes, of course. So if you ask, you can very often, with real low cost, you can get something extra. And in the other, like from other side, if you will help the other company, the other partner, they will really appreciate that. And that's a part of building the relation, which is relation between company and company, but it's also relation between person and person. And these personal relations in the business, long-term personal relations are very, very important, and yeah, it's just worth it. So about trust. Like my everyday at work, it's like I have a lot of meetings which are just going for a Skype or going for a call, and it's like most of people which I work every day, I haven't seen them in person, never, and I will not see them ever. We can have a deal together, we can work together on some projects, but I have to trust that they exist. I have to trust that they will deliver what they promised to deliver to me, to the company. And I have to trust that they will play fair. And yeah, it's like basic. And I really like this rule to trust the company, and partners which you are working with, because if these people, if these companies, if those are your partners now, you made decision, and like being trustful for them, it's part of this decision. If there will be some issue, and if you will try to solve that and you will not solve that, okay, there is no trust anymore. But like this base stage is to trust people, trust company. That's actually my dashboard. And things which I very often still don't remember, but I should. It's like local holidays or local special days. Or okay, it's Friday in New York. It's, for example, Friday 6 p.m. So okay, I could not get anything from Poland. If I need some answer, if I need something, nope, that will not happen. So And there is also like this 2 weeks in each year, 2 or 3 weeks when there is this difference between time zones in Europe and in the US. And for the last 3 years, it was like always some meeting was just rescheduled because someone don't remember that there is this 1 hour difference. So just be careful about that, and just be also very attention for some holidays, some special times in other countries, in other cultures. That's the actual sentence which I get from one friend of mine in New York. And I show you this sentence because it's like, okay, it's globalization. We can use this business culture, which is pretty the same in every country, in every city. But in the same time, it's really great to remember that some cities, some areas, and are some kind of special. Like they think that they are special, and there are some different rules. For example, in New York, it's very special. It's a very special city. I really love New York. I'm actually in love with this city for like last 1.5 year. But it's like you will get your answer for your question very direct. You will get feedback very direct, and as well as they really count things which are in the New York. It's like if you build something awesome, like some conference for 10,000 people, and you will reach like $300,000 for this conference. But it was in San Francisco. Okay, it was in San Francisco. It was not New York. So they are very picky about that, and each city has some very local things, which is just good to know. If you have your business in, for example, in Silicon Valley, if you have your business, if you have your clients in Silicon Valley, or if you have clients in New York, it's good to have someone there. Or if you could not afford for having someone there, it's good to have some like basic knowledge about the area, and definitely it will be good to just be there from time to time, just to have this, to still build this relation with your client, to build this kind of network community, and to show yourself actually. So building global projects, there is different ways. Definitely like couple of you, or maybe even more, are in open source, and definitely you also have your own projects. Go global. Like it's really not so hard and really worth it. Things which I also can definitely recommend. It's being a mentor on some programming workshops. And for example, these workshops which I do with DeepSense.io, machine learning workshops, we are looking for some instructors. And also tech communities. For example, I learned so much from Women Who Code. I learned so much from Geekers, Carrots, building this project. And those are really great opportunities to build your own project in the future, or if you would like to just learn something from other global projects, there are there. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Let me invite now Magda. Magda, you are here. Magda Zadara. She's from Polydia, and she's co-organizing this conference, as you probably know. She will tell about some cool tool that she created for designers.
Hello. Can you all hear me? I think so. How many of you are actually designers or product managers? Okay, developers? I see. So my talk is going to be about a UX tool that I created, and it's a set of cards that we use at Polydia to run an exercise with clients at early stages of projects. And I will pass a copy around. I don't know if it will get to the back rows, but if you want to have a look at it. It's basically a tool that lets you talk with your client about what they imagine their app will be. And to start, I would like to say that I am part of a team, and I work in Polydia's creative team, which means that I don't do even if I do projects alone, I don't really do them alone. I bounce a lot of ideas off the people on my team. So I would like to say thank you to my team for pitching in ideas and comments and feedback about this tool, because it's been about a year in the making. And so the idea came from a problem, as most ideas in design. And the problem was that we found clients, when they came in for the first kickoff workshop in an app project, they were having a hard time talking about apps, because if we oftentimes forget, but if you're not a developer, you're not a designer, you don't work with tech, it's actually kind of hard to imagine new solutions. And but it is a lot easier for people to think about people or objects or everyday things that they are surrounded with. And it's a lot easier for them to imagine different concepts when they're applied to people and objects rather than apps, because they don't really know what to do with that. And so sometimes we would find that we would discuss something in a first workshop, like, oh, the app should be simple, and then it turns out that our idea of simple is completely different from the client's idea, or the idea of smart, or many of these words that get thrown around a lot, and they're not actually understood in the same way. And so the inspiration for this tool came from my education. I'm a product designer by training, and we had a branding unit on my course, which was about finding, you had to design something for this brand, an imaginary product, and part of defining the brand was defining the brand personality. So if this brand were a person, what kind of person would it be? Or if this brand was a dog, what kind of dog would it be? And so I remembered this exercise, and I was like, great, dogs, that's the solution. I need to make something with dogs. And so the process was a little bit bumpy, because the first idea that I came up with was the doggy deck. And it was literally a set of cards with 20 different dogs on them, because I was like, hey, everyone loves dogs, and they know the different breeds, and all the different breeds have different qualities. So surely they can map an app being more like a golden retriever or more like a schnauzer. It turns out that was completely wrong. As much as people can't talk about abstract apps, they also can't map dogs to apps, because it's backwards. And so they would look at these cards and be like, oh, cute doggy, I want that one. And they would be like, my app should be like this dog, but it wasn't actually because the qualities were matching, but it was because they just liked the dog. So then I tried a little bit of a different approach, which gave me the app personality deck, which was a prototype of what is going around right now. That was put through more testing with our actual real clients in real workshops, and it seemed to work more, so this was developed into the final tool, which is the character deck, which is what I'm going to talk about right now. So the tool is a set of 24 cards, and there's 4 cards which you start with, and they are cards with numbers on them. And the cards represent 4 different qualities of apps. The level of activity, the level of complexity, the design language, and the relation to guidelines. And so level of activity means, is this app going to engage the user on its own, or is it going to be more waiting for the user to start an interaction? So for example, a proactive app might be Swarm, which is going to bombard you with notifications saying, hey, while you were away, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and open me, open me, open me. Whereas maybe a Maps app will just be sitting there until you actually use it. The second quality is the level of complexity, and I know that some developers have a problem with the word automatic and smart, as apparently they don't mean different things, but to me they mean different things. And so automatic in this sense is something that happens without added sort of data processing. It's just the user inputs some data and then gets the data back, or it's just, it's in there. Whereas smart would be something that gives you an extra level of added value. So this is well illustrated on the example of mailboxes. Apple Mail will be an automatic app which only stores your mail for you. And then Google Inbox adds a layer of complexity by saying, hey, maybe this is how you would like to respond. I don't know if you've all seen this feature. It's basically, it reads your email and then it proposes 3 different things that you might want to say. Design language is about what the app is going to look like, what kind of interactions it's going to have. And we have playful apps, which have rounded icons, many colors, are friendly and happy. And then we have serious apps, which are more dark and tend to have more angular features. And then platform guidelines, which for app developers is pretty straightforward, but I know that a lot of folks coming from web have a problem understanding what this actually means. So you will have apps that are third-party apps, but they actually look like system apps. So WhatsApp, best example, it looks exactly like a native chat app, but it's actually a third-party app, whereas Snapchat is like completely crazy, and they designed their own interactions and their own UI, and which looks nothing like Apple's native applications or Android. And so you have these 4 cards, and you have these 4 qualities, and this is the core of the exercise. You go through each of these cards with your client, and you're like, okay, listen, do you want this app to be proactive or reactive? And you discuss all of the implications, and you discuss what this might mean. So this is especially important for things that might take a lot of time when you're implementing them. So or money because time is money. So if the client says I want a custom interface, you need to discuss the fact that this is going to take longer. It's gonna take more money. And so once you've arranged them, you can see that on top of the cards there forms a pattern of 4 dots, and this pattern is reflected on the back of the other 16 cards, which have characters on them. Hence the name character deck. And so depending on which pattern you got, you pick the card, and this is like a final extra step. Really, you could just rely on the 4 cards and on the discussion they provoked. But I find that visualizing the stuff that you came up with in one kind of person or object makes the client remember it better and understand it better. So this could be, there's 16 different characters. This is actually loosely based on MBTI, the Myers-Briggs Personality Type Indicator, which is a psychological framework for categorizing people. And so I took these qualities, I translated them into design terms, and so that's how you get 16 different objects or personalities for your app. And then there's an extra step which you can do with, and this is actually something that I didn't come up with, but the clients naturally tended to do, which is imagining what the future milestones for your app might look like if you change these qualities over time. So a fan favorite is, of course, starting out with automatic, so the app shouldn't do any extra data processing in the beginning, and then, so it's kind of like a post-it note, it's flexible, it's, it's basic, and it's not smart. And then when you change the quality to smart, it becomes a person, it becomes something like a counselor, so someone who will guide you and someone who will give you good advice about stuff that you're doing. This is the most important takeaway from this talk. This is not a scientific tool. It's a conversation starter. It's something that helps you when clients don't really know how to put into words what they want and what they expect from you. It helps solve a lot of conflict at the beginning and avoid a lot of conflict that would happen later. And that's pretty much it. You can download this tool. You can make your own cards under this link. It's not open source because it's not a piece of code, but it's openly available under a Creative Commons license. So I'll be very happy if you want to use it and report back your feedback, and then also, of course, follow us on Twitter. And yeah, if anyone, do we have time for questions?
Yes, we still have time for
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions? No one has questions.
No one has questions? Anyone?
You can win something. Oh, there you go.
Is it crucial that, or is it a good point that these cards are actual analog objects that the customer can touch? And because you could make an app from these cards. How's your experience with that? That the customer can touch them and move them around? Is it
We
results?
Yeah, I mean, as designers, we love analog tools because we believe that they make that they mobilize a sort of thinking in your like when you physically touch or draw or do something with your hands, it mobilizes different parts of your brain. But I don't have any proof for that, so it's just an assumption really. And I do find that shuffling them around and laying them out on a table, which you can't do with an app, is helpful. But I do think you can make them. You could probably make an app for that. But I was able to make the deck all on my own. I didn't have to ask any developers, so that was a bonus. Here's another question. And there's another question there. Oh, and even more questions.
Hey, I'd like to ask, how long have you been using them and what's the general feedback from the clients? How do they respond to this kind of like kickstart of the project?
So we've been using this, we've used it, I think, in 4 different projects, versions of it, because we've used the previous versions as well. And the most important thing I would say is not using it at the start of a workshop when their clients are just fresh and coming in, because their mindset won't be sort of ready. And it is a pretty abstract and weird tool to use. So having them warmed up and preparing them that it's going to be a weird and abstract tool really helps. And then. But once you go through all of the stages of a workshop, because obviously we don't use this on its own, we'll do like, talk about users before, talk about the market, competition. And so this really ties it all together. And I have found that there are different types of clients, but there's, most people will be like, yeah, I really feel like this is it. I really feel like this, personifies what I want. But then there will be obviously some people who will be like, what? I don't understand. Like, why do you want me to do this? Like, it's an app, it's not a person. What are you talking about? And with these people, it's just not worth fighting with them because it's just a different mindset and they won't want to do it. But the ones who are more positive towards it, I have found that it tends to sort of gather everything you've talked about in a workshop into a takeaway.
Okay.
Actually,
great.
really
Thanks.
good, really good experiences.
Can I just buy it?
No, we don't. Well, I wasn't planning on selling it, but you're like the 3rd person to ask, so maybe I will start.
Okay.
Was that your question, Monica? Was that your question? Okay. Do you want to ask your question?
I will be very brief because I appreciate your work. Congratulations, I really like the idea, and I also want to buy it. I don't want it to own for free. I just would like to buy it, so to show my
Okay.
appreciation.
We'll think about it.
Okay, thank you, Magda.
So the first 2 people who ask questions, so over there and over here, you guys will get a copy.
Ah, that's really cool. Okay, so the next person is Marcin Wyszyński. He worked in Google and Facebook before, and previously Magda talked about non-scientific tool. So that one will be about some scientific approach for code analysis. Marcin is CTO in CodeBit, and he will talk about how from scientific idea you can make a successful product.
Hello, everyone. My name is Martin. I'm a CTO of CodeBeat, and CodeBeat is a early stage static analysis startup. We do support multiple languages, including Swift, which is probably of most interest to most people here. Next to Ruby, Swift is my least favorite language to analyze for all sorts of reasons I'd love to discuss with you. And I apologize in advance for being a bit sick. I tried to recover for today, but my wife says drinking a lot of ice cold Red Bull did not help. Sorry about that. The story I want to tell you today is about how we used some bad 1960s obsolete science to create a modern software product. So it's a nice trip to actually give you a little bit of background on how that even happened. I am a software scientist, computer scientist by education, but I also happened to study sociology for a while. So I got in touch with different strange theories that people came up with, and that, well, they can be inspiring, in fact. But before I start talking about what we did and how we did it, I'd like to ask you what science is. Okay, trial and error in a way, yes. A lot of laymen would say that science is lasers, hydrogen bombs, MacBook Pros, and all that sort of stuff. But in fact, science is a process. It's a process of observing reality, coming up with theories, and theories that both explain and predict the reality, and then trying to falsify it. So basically, you come up with something, and then you try to prove yourself wrong, or have other people prove you wrong. In fact, some things are not science, right? And if you can't prove things wrong, they're not science. You can disprove a general relativity by experiments, and if you show that something is outside of the theory, a phenomenon is outside of the theory, you basically just said Einstein was not right? But if you have a theory that aliens killed off all the dinosaurs, that's not something you can disprove. If you come up with a conspiracy theory about whatever event, it's not a theory. You can't disprove it. The problem with those conspiracy theories is that if you try to disprove it, there'll always be people who say, "Oh, but I'm sure there were other forces at play." So that's not science, essentially. Enter Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky he's still alive. He's 87 at the moment. He is the U.S. most prominent communist. But before he got into fringe politics, he actually had a very, very successful career in philosophy and linguistics. He is, in fact, called the father of modern linguistics. And Noam Chomsky is a very smart guy, and philosophers tend to be smart guys. I recently read a snippet of code written by a philosopher, and it raised a lot of philosophical questions. But philosophers generally tend to be smart people. And he came up with this interesting idea in 1950s and 1960s that there exists something called universal grammar. Basically, outside all of the complexity, all of the vocabulary complexity of human languages, somewhere down there exists a grammar that is common for all mankind. And it is common because it is hardwired into our brain. So essentially, the way we speak is determined by the way our brains are hardwired. And it's very interesting because he also came up with this idea of language acquisition device, that there's, in fact, a physical part of our brain that is responsible for learning the language, right? That has been disproved already, but LAD was not a part of universal grammar. It was just extra theory that in fact you could disprove. You could prove that when you're learning a language, there's nothing special going on in your brain, so there doesn't exist a part of your brain that is involved in that. That is a scientific theory, and it was wrong. However, universal grammar was forgotten as well. And it's not that it was wrong. In fact, a lot of the things that Chomsky came up with are accepted as groundbreaking works of modern linguistics. Universal grammar is probably not one of them because it went a step too far. So essentially, universal grammar was the way people constructed it was some obscure guy in some obscure Amazonian jungle came up with this obscure language that only 300 people spoke, and guess what? It was completely different than anything any other language had. So they basically built they added some extra stuff to the universal grammar to account for this language, like piranha or something like that. And lo and behold, your theory still holds. And as I said already, if you can't falsify a theory, if you can't disprove it, it just isn't science. So this theory is not the right theory to describe human languages. There's too much diversity in human languages. However, fast forward 50 years, and it turns out that there exists a group of formal languages that are well described by what Noam Chomsky came up with. And obviously, these are programming languages. For those of you who know many programming languages, this is going to sound like a bit of heresy, but I know 15, and I tell you what, they're all the same. Under the hood, they're all the same, and it doesn't come from the fact that they're hardwired into our brains and that we have for loops and if conditionals hardwired into our brains. The reason is very pragmatic. Basically, programming languages solve same pragmatic tasks over and over again. Essentially, all programming languages do the same. They look the same because they do the same. Put an asterisk on my comment. I'm gonna elaborate on that a little bit more. But essentially, all programming languages, except for very obscure ones, have functions, loops, conditionals, literals, variables, control transfer, statements, expressions, that sort of stuff. They're all the same, essentially, under the hood somewhere. And the way you analyze languages, programming languages, is very similar to what linguists came up with in 1950s and 1960s. You build abstract syntax trees. I'm not going to elaborate much on that topic, but basically an abstract syntax tree is your code broken into a tree of elements that the computer knows how to traverse to start your program or load your library. And these ASTs are produced by programs called parsers. And for the non-technical audience, and also for the technical audience, I might call parser native speakers of these languages. So for example, we support 4 languages. We support Ruby. We started with Ruby. We support Go. We support Python. And we support Swift. So, and because we need native speakers, we parse Ruby code with Ruby. We parse Go code with Go. We parse Python code with Python, and we parse Swift code with Java. Right. That's also something very interesting. So what a native speaker does is native speaker basically builds that abstract syntax tree, and it's complete gibberish. Like the next level up in our hierarchy does not even understand what Python program looks like. It doesn't understand what a Ruby program looks like. So what the native speaker has to do is take that gibberish and annotate it. And basically what we do is we look at certain nodes in that tree. We look at certain elements, and the native speaker understands that, hey, in Python, this actually signifies a conditional. This signifies a nesting. And we know that a lot of nesting is a bad thing. All programmers should probably agree to as much, that too much nesting is a bad thing. So a native speaker can annotate text in a particular language in a way that is nicely understood by what we might call an anthropologist, a guy who tries to find a common thing between the languages. And it's fantastic. It's rainbows and unicorns. Parsers, the native speakers we've got, they're tiny. They cover only the last mile. So for example, a Python parser is 200 lines of code. Other parsers are larger because Python is such an elegant language that is such a it's a very symmetrical language, so it was very easy to come up with this native speaker translation. Ruby is a bit worse. But then again, it's only the last mile, and it's very scalable. So if you want to add a new language, all we need to do is find a native speaker, have the native speaker put extra comments on the ASD, and boom, we've got ourselves and language support. So it's very easy. We don't do it for reasons that are not technical. We do it for marketing reasons. We can't just possibly cater to all possible communities, right? If you need a new problem to be highlighted, all you need to do is have native speakers put more annotations in the code, and that's good. Obviously, it's not all kumbaya. We inherit problems. We inherit problems from both universal grammar and static analysis. In fact, saying that all programming languages are the same is wrong, but only a little bit wrong. Because there are a few languages that are very different. Prolog is one of them. If you've ever learned Prolog and tried Prolog, a lot of concepts just don't apply. But we can pretend they don't exist. If we close our eyes, we can pretend they don't exist. We don't have to analyze them. That's fine. We can still make a good product by analyzing most common languages, and that's good enough. But also, static analysis is not perfect. Static analysis does not run your code, and there exist languages that allow such heavy modifications to the language itself that static analysis will not allow you to understand what the program is all about. If you've ever used Ruby, if you've used Haskell, if you used Elixir, if you use Lisp with macros, you know what I'm talking about. But then again, it's okay, because static analysis should not only ever be the only tool that you use. It's just a tool in your toolbox, and it has its place, right? We don't try to solve all your problems. So the key takeaways is, first of all, inspiration can come from anywhere. We basically took some really obscure idea, and we built a product that actually performs its job admirably. Bad science can still make good products, because products are not based on science. Not all of them. Bad science probably can't make good lasers, right? Or hydrogen bombs. But it can make good software products, surprisingly. Science has to be exact, and engineering can take a lot of shortcuts. Science can't just close its eyes to 10% of the world. Software can. It's, the last mile is always the longest. Philosophers are more useful than we give them credit for. That's another takeaway. And if you work with any of the languages that we support, please try us out and give us feedback. It's free for all, open source, so please do try. Any questions?
Yeah, so I have a quick question. You said that you are using Java to parse Swift. Why?
Right. Because it's easy. And Swift changes a lot, and you have, and it breaks backwards compatibility, and it's pretty damning for a language. So if we use the native Swift parser, it's open source. First of all, it's really undocumented C++, so good luck with that. But we could do it. The bigger problem is, if the language changes and breaks backwards compatibility, we don't know what version of the language is used. So we don't know which parser to use. So we need to use something that is generic enough, like a parser generator that is generic enough that would be able to take care of this backwards incompatibility and still analyze your code. We use Antler, which is a parser generator, and it's one of the target languages is Java. Java is a nice language because you can learn it in an afternoon and be done with that. So we used it to keep our lives easier, I suppose.
Okay, time for one more question, if anyone has.
What
what are the? I mean, it looks like you are writing another static analysis tool. So, what are the advantages of your tool over the tool we know?
What other tools do you know?
Well, you said abstract syntax tree. So, for example, coverity, consumer mind. I'm not sure it's the same. Maybe it's not the same.
It's similar, but we try to be focused on education. So we show you how to, what are the quickest wins, how do you get to a place where your code is simpler. We find similarities in your code, so we give you refactoring advice. We support some languages that Coverity doesn't. We integrate with pull requests, so basically it's something we have in a pipeline. So basically we show you stuff in GitHub. It's a hosted tool, and Coverity is mostly a standalone. I think that Coverity has its hosted version, but so you basically get a report that is shared by your team, and standards can be enforced, that sort of stuff.
Okay, thank you. That was awesome
Thank you.
presentation. Thanks. And the last flash talk for today, Igor Savchuk from Vanli. He will tell about a very hot topic recently, which is like bots. Yeah, bots are everywhere. Mobile is taking the world in, using bots right now. Igor, fun fact about Igor, that he failed his master's to go to MIT Hack. So that shows the dedication of Igor. And in a few moments, hopefully. Yes.
Hi everyone. So you probably heard about the saying that software is eating the world. And right now we are talking about the mobile is eating the world. And it's true because everyone has the mobile device in their pocket, and it's probably much faster and much better than the computers you have like 5 years ago. So we at Wandly, we are betting on Messenger and we are betting on chatbots because we believe that mobile is not only the apps, mobile is not only the mobile, web mobile, it's also about the conversation. And together with Asia, my co-founder, we have built a SaaS for conversational commerce. So what is it? We want to give every business in the world who have messaging platform connected, for example, Facebook pages, or Kik, or Slack. We want to give them ability to access their clients and give them the service to schedule and make an appointment in their own calendar. For example, the best example is tennis rackets, tennis places, or hairdressers. You just write to your hairdresser, hey, I want to have tomorrow cut, and the system understands your message, goes to the calendar, checks the calendar, goes back and done. But because I'm not only CEO, but I'm also engineer, so I will not tell you about what we have done, but what can you do and what is the promising land for you in this scope. And why everything have began? It's simple because we go from the social media to the messaging platforms. Users are growing, so messaging, Facebook Messenger have 900 million users right now, and it's constantly growing. And of course, yeah, there we are. And everyone start talking about the messaging as a new way of platform. It's of course a bullshit because it will not happen. The mobile apps will not go extinct. The same as we've gone with the radio. Radio did not kill the newspapers. Television did not kill the radio, and so on and so on. But it's important because at 12 April, Facebook told us we are betting on it, and we are going to build a platform which allows you to connect your own bots to the people and give them ability to communicate. So It's not a novel concept that we steal from China and we say we done it first time. So we done with the Gutenberg. Not, I don't know if you know that we didn't invent the printing. The Chinese did 100 years ago. And the same goes with the chatbots. They already done it a few years ago back, and it's booming, and most of the commerce and most of the sales go through their messaging platforms. And of course, Facebook didn't have the chance to do anything different, but let's build the platform, let's open the platform for developers. And this is a big opportunity for us and for you, because the same as App Store, you're able to build and to get rich and gold rush and so on a new platform, reaching new clients. And because this is 10 years projections, it will never happen. The same as the Microsoft said about the memory, how much we need, and so on and so on. But what will happen? Users will migrate from the platforms where there are ads to the platforms where there are no ads at all. So from Facebook to Messenger, from Messenger to something else. And right now, until the Messenger will provide the ads and will force users to see content which were paid before. I forgot to give you the camera, okay. We will see the rise of the messengers, and we will see the rise of the businesses which want to give their service through the messengers. Of course, we know all this, and this is I think the way we describe the messaging platform or chatbots. So this is some kind of entity which we will talk, and it will understand the context, and it will be so powerful and will know everything that will just, okay, you want to fly tomorrow to New York, no problem. And behind them, there are a bunch of data scientists which work hard to do this. And the biggest challenge to do generic AI is to understand the context. And this is the problem with Alexa, with Siri, and so on. They don't understand the context, but if you give them the context, that you want to schedule a meeting, if you want to schedule a conference, or you want to have tickets to the sports event, it's easier, because then you can automate, then you can do smart things, and this landscape of intelligent assistants is growing, and they're probably coming to Messenger also as a chatbot, as something that you can interact with. And okay, but the end experience and the what we really want to give the users, it's not to install the app and allow them everything to do. We need just them to order a pizza, and it should be as simple as possible. So we believe, and I believe personally, that applications will be in decline where there are too much permissions to give to the users, because users hate to give permissions to everything. And the rise of the chat apps, which doesn't require any permission, just to interact, to order a pizza and say, okay, I want this order to be at my place. So there's still, we are still waiting for key features. So before you go to code and open your laptop and sign up for Facebook Messenger platform, hold on, because we still are 2 years at least without the key features which allow you to monetize your application, which allows you to do real interactions and to really have the how to say, benefits from it. So first of all, we don't have the payments right now, and no micropayments, no advertisement. So if you build a mobile app right now, you probably have to move your customers to some other service. So if you're building something more than just CNN News International experience, you probably it's not ready. The next thing is understanding. You probably all know this example of Thai, which didn't understand what it have learned, and it was really bad language at the end of her life. Yeah. So there's still no technology which allows you to distinguish between moral and not moral. So there's something to build or to watch for. The next thing, bot to bot. And there was example of two bots, scheduling bots, which were talking to each other through the email to schedule a meeting between two people. And the same goes here. If you want to have a party, you probably want to set up all the bots you like and you trust. For example, pizza bot, dance floor bot, something, and Spotify bot, and tell them, I want to organize the best party for my wife, and they should interact itself without your help to first of all set a meeting, set a place, set a date, invite people, check with the calendars of these people if they have time, buy a ticket, get the best cake without allergies, and this everything there will be in next 2 years probably. Emotions. This is also because I'm engineer and Asia is designer. We always fight for my solutions, and my answering bot is like very strict, like German language. Yes, you have this meeting. And Asia say, no, come on, let's give him something to smile. Let's make it more playful. Let's make it more for the humans. And this is also, we are still looking for this technology for chatbots. The chatbots doesn't understand your state of emotions, doesn't understand your context of what is happening right now. And this is something you can build, or you can wait for someone to invent and then go to the chatbots. And the last slide, I love this slide, because Henry Ford said if you ask people what they wanted, they always said faster horses. But in reality, it's not what they really wanted. They wanted cars. The same applies with the chatbots. Right now, if you ask people what they want, okay, I want to talk with the chatbot and I want to interact with some fan page. It's not what they want really. And this is what we will discover in few months, and probably I hope the Quest loop, the Wandly and the Quest we are engaged for the Wandly to discover this will also be with us. Okay, thank you.
We have time for one question. Anyone wants to ask a question to Igor? So let me ask a question. So how opening the Facebook API changed your chances, or did it is it really helpful, or is it something that is competing with you?
Yes, we see this Facebook as a platform, as an app store. So I hope there will be many app stores for us to engage and to build our Only and our solution, because we will reach more and more people. And I believe that we will stop ringing and calling to services. We'll start chatting with them because it's more convenient.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.